Here's part two. Okay, I decided that since I was cooking these little chunks, cooking this little bread thing, I was going to go ahead and make a couple of lollipops. That's what I'm calling those blocks of the molasses and the feed in it and everything. Just calling it a lollipop, because that's basically all it is. Yeah, let me show you the ingredients. Instead of putting it in the oven this time, I'm gonna try to put it in the container that's gonna be in and microwave it. Let's see how that goes. So I got these little cheapo El Cheapo containers because I have figured out that the molasses on its own in the heat does not work very well. They melt and you can come by and bump it with your leg or something and it's gonna fall off or whatever it is. So what I decided is to just use these containers, these little cheap containers, and just leave them in there. Drill holes in it so if it rains, water can drain through or something, but for the most part, just leave them in there. I mean, it's just a plastic container you can get like for $4 or something. I mean, so what all I use is the is oats, corn, and sweet feed, the same stuff that I use to make this stuff with right here. So what I do is you don't want to put too much corn in there. You don't want to put too much oats in there. Just for the simple fact that the molasses won't have enough to bind together. But if you don't put enough in there, then the molasses will really just kind of stick and just draw out. So you want to try to get some sort of consistency. So I put enough corn in there, just enough to cover the bottom. Just enough to cover the bottom. That's about all that's in there. So you can put enough in there just to cover the bottom. Then you add enough oats to cover just the corn, and then the rest of it sweet feed until you fill it up. Not all the way up to the top because you still got your molasses to soak in, but almost up to the top. So once you do that, you just pour it in a bowl and you just mix it up. You want to mix it up as good as you can mix it up, and that's all it is. The rest of that stuff is the sweet feed, like I had before. And like I said, I'm gonna leave them in the container. I know the containers are microwavable or microwave safe. So, and all you're trying to do is just melt that molasses to where it just melts and binds and everything settles in on itself. And then I'm gonna put it in the freezer and let it freeze up like a lollipop. Like I said, once it dries, once it gets hard, they'll be ready to use. I'm gonna make a couple of these. I got 2 bowls here. I got two of these little containers full of that stuff in here. And like I said, you want to mix it up as good as you can. You don't want any chunks, because again, the more chunks you have, the less that stuff's gonna bind together like it should. So you want to mix it up really, 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 really well. It just makes it easier binding and easier cooking. Okay, the lollipop in the microwave oven is definitely a thumbs up. Like I said, all you want to do is just melt that molasses so it kind of settles down and binds to everything else that's in there. And like I said, I put it in there for 1:10, 20 seconds, and it melted it down to the point where I feel comfortable with it, staying together. So, like I said, I've been cooking it, literally putting it in the oven and cooking it. But this seems to work out a lot better. It's easier, it's quicker, it's faster, and it seems to do just a good job. So that's probably the way I'm going to do it from now on, if it freezes right. Like I said, I'm going to put them in the freezer to kind of shock freeze them and kind of harden it up as quick as I can. Because like I said, that molasses, when you first pour it in there, it's thick. It's really thick, so you can build a bridge out of it if you wanted to. I mean, it is horribly thick. So what you want to do is just heat that molasses up to the point where it gets more liquefied and it melts down into the rest of the stuff that you're cooking. So I think that's going to work out pretty good. My bread stuff ought to be done here in about 20 seconds. So let me put this in the freezer right quick. Okay, this is the stuff. This is on 40 minutes. It's sitting there cooking, you can't hardly tell. It's hardened on the outside. It's still pliable. I mean, I can push my finger in there, but it's hot. But what I'll do is I'll flip it over and cook it for another, say, 30 minutes, poke some holes in it and stuff, and we'll kind of see how it goes from there. But this stuff right here, like I said, it's firm on the outside. So like I said, I'll flip it over and poke some holes in it. Okay, so all I did, this is flipped over now. All I did was flip it over and take a little plastic knife and poke some holes in it, or cut some slits in it and everything. That's going to allow the heat to get inside of it and dry it out a little bit better. But we'll put it back in for about another 20 minutes and we'll check on it there. My wife was complaining about how it smelled in here, me cooking all this stuff. So I asked my son, I said, what does it smell like in here to you? He said, oh, it smells like Christmas and crap. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the pan, pulled the cake out of the pan and just cut it up into 4 sections so it'll dry a little bit, cool off a little quicker. Once it cools off a little bit, you can tell that the inside is still kind of moist. Okay, so that's what we want to dry out. Now that the outside is nice and, firm, what we want to do is put that, once this cools off, crumble it up into the piece-sized pieces that we want. You can do it with your hands, it's not that hard. And then put it back in the oven and let it just dry it out big time. So that's what we're after there. But once this cools off, I'll be able to break this apart and into like little chunks, like the chunks that's in the bottom. All right, I got the bread crumbled up into bite-sized pieces. Now, like I said, I just put them in the oven, let them dry out real good where they're kind of crunchy, and then they'll be done. All right, this is it, it's done. Anytime, whenever it starts becoming, it goes away from being mushy and starts just becoming brittle, like this is, kind of like a hard, any kind of pet food that you get, it's just as chunky. Just let it cool down. The way I do is I run it for about 30 minutes to begin with, and then every 20 to 25 minutes after that, I stir it and put it back in there. Let it set for 20 to 25 minutes, pull it out, stir it up again until it gets like this. Now, fair warning, it does take a couple hours to do this, but once it gets done, it's just as hard as it can be. Or not, stone hard, but feed hard. Hard like feed. That's gonna do it. Thanks for watching. We're gonna try it out, put it in some bottles and see how it does.